Welcome to episode 101. Today we interview Mr. Rich Celenza. Born in Chicago in the fashion and modeling industry, he has written 2 books, acted, produced, and directed 2 feature films. On this episode, we talk about confidence and that one has the ability to meet life's challenges and succeed. Now, let's welcome the man himself. Real business, real people, real stories. Welcome to Real Business Podcast. I'm your host, Robert Benenati. Oh, here we have Mr. Rich Celenza on the show. Rich, thanks for coming on board, taking time out of your busy schedule, and being with us here.
Thank you. And I also want to thank you for being on my podcast as well. So
it was an experience. Thank you very much for having me.
No, yeah, of course. All right.
So, Rich, what are you up to now?
I'm doing podcasts with you off and on. So I've been doing a lot of podcasts myself as well, YouTube videos, working on my Mastering Self-Confidence program online. I was creating a You Around app that I want to kind of bring back into play, which is an app to help people in a time of need. And I guess just working out.
All right, so let's take a little back more here.
Sure.
So we've met recently, and recently I mean 4 months, maybe 5 months.
Yeah.
We met at the gym, and we had a friend in common, and we were talking about YouTube and podcast. And I just came up to you and I said, "Hey, I have a couple questions," and you were more than a gentleman just to open up and share your thoughts. So thank you for that.
No, of course.
So you're Italian.
Yes.
So am I, to a certain degree. So
yeah.
we kind of clicked on that. Let's go back a little bit. You were born in Chicago?
Right outside Chicago. Yeah.
And your parents were in the garment industry, in the modeling.
My grandparents.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, my grandparents owned and operated the largest garment shop in Chicago for many, many years. In the years past, then my other family members, aunts, uncles, and cousins also went into that business, which my father actually ended up not following into those footsteps. He went and opened a nightclub. But being involved with that industry, I did when I was younger go on to do some modeling and acting. And my other side of the family, not my father's, they were involved with the television film industry as well, which kind of, I guess, introduced me to that industry as well. So I kind of had both things kind of going, which was very beneficial to me, I guess you could say.
So you really got into the modeling because you have a couple books, right? So, by the way, he's an author.
I don't know about. I've written 2 books.
Well, that makes that qualifies you as an author.
Yeah, I can't see myself as that, but yes, I guess yes, you can get 2 books.
And one of the books is the Bible.
No, my first book was the Model Bible.
Model Bible.
Yeah, that was kind of an introduction to help young females, for the most part, help them break into the industry and protect themselves. Also for parents as well, if they wanted to read it, to help protect their children. Because growing up in the modeling industry from a young age and then going through it with my daughter, so many young ladies and kids as well, they get taken advantage of all the time. And I'm not saying modeling. I go through a lot of different things regarding my beliefs, which I do like modeling schools, but my beliefs regarding kind of when you, I guess you could say, either graduate from modeling school or decide to become a model, all the people that are out there to take advantage of you and how to do things correctly, how to look at things from a business perspective if you want to be a model, and learning how to segue that into a different career.
So that's like finding an agent, the legal side of it.
Correct. Like I go through everything from top to bottom, and also how to market yourself. Not necessarily that you have to go to modeling school. How to carry yourself, how to find an agent, a manager. Kind of putting yourself in the right place at the right time. Right. How to take the right type of photos with the right type of photographer. How to protect yourself from not getting caught up or lied to regarding a lot of different things. Also, truthfully, in taking a realistic approach to who you are. If you're only 5'4" and you think you're going to be some glamour, runway model, most likely that's not going to happen. So you have to take an approach, figure out what type of model you want to be, where you think you're going to be the most successful. And again, being a model is usually a short-term game, right? And I think a lot of women, young women especially, get advice books, or they're watching a bunch of famous models and learning kind of what their career path was, when the reality is theirs most likely isn't going to be anything like that. Everyone takes a different approach into that industry. So if you don't live in Paris, New York, Milan, or other places, that doesn't mean you can't do it, but you've got to find your way.
When did you write this book? What year?
Wow, I started writing that book.
And the reason I'm asking is because now with Instagram and all these young girls and females putting up different sorts of pictures and all sorts of pictures,
right?
Trying to reach that celebrity.
I touch on that.
So it's in there.
It is in there. It's, there's so much phoniness. I talk about this when I was modeling, say, for instance, when I was a teenager. I went to modeling school in Chicago, Barbizon. I had some cousins that were involved and an aunt who was very young involved in that industry. So I kind of followed in their footsteps. And back then, when you went to modeling school, let's just say, for instance, for the men at least, you had to get chosen. And then after you graduated from there, you went and got work, and people knew what you were doing. Nowadays, a lot of people kind of bullshit their way through it, and they pretend they know what to do on a photo shoot. They know how to walk a runway professionally. They know how to kind of carry themselves in the industry, especially if you're going to start doing some camera work, doing commercials. And I don't want to dismiss those women. Here's the deal. There's millions of pretty women out there, right?
Right.
And I talk about this all the time. There's somebody always prettier than you out there. There's somebody who's going to be in better shape than you. There's somebody taller than you. There's somebody who has better hair than you. Someone who has a better smile than you. It goes on and on and on. What makes you unique, right? I can go right now, like you said, to an Instagram page or hundreds of women, and they're pretty. And what else do they have to offer? How do they carry themselves? And when you want to get in the modeling industry, you got to realize you're representing somebody else at all times, not yourself. Where Instagram or a lot of women don't realize it, they are caught up with themselves. If you're going to be a model, you got to realize, I don't care if it's for Chanel, I don't care if it's for Abercrombie, I don't care if you go all the way to the bottom, if it's, I don't want to name a brand, but somebody that's not very well known, you are going to be representing them when you go do a photo shoot. You have to learn how to carry yourself, build a relationship with them, and really know what you're talking about. Because a lot of shoots, and they don't know this, cost a lot of money. And also you want to grow with that brand or move from one brand to the next. So they don't know that. They basically think they're going to take pretty photos and someone's going to discover them. In this day and age, good luck with that. You got to basically discover yourself and market yourself, but you have to do it the right way. And that's what I kind of describe in the book.
Now, does that tie you into your second book about mastering confidence? Because now you have to do it with confidence.
There's a lot of things. Yes, I think the one thing women, I'll get into the second book, they have to understand is you are going to have confidence and learn how to handle rejection constantly. I mean, very few women are going to walk out and all of a sudden get discovered. And even if they do get discovered, they're not going to get every job, right?
Right.
I don't care if you're even an A-list actor. They don't get every role they want to get. Same with every model. You don't get tied into every brand that you love. So life's about handling rejection more than anything. My Mastering Self-Confidence, that's a program, but it's based off my book called Wingman. That has really nothing to do with two opposite ends of the spectrum. That is basically me trying to help men find the woman or women of their dreams through a bad breakup or divorce, kind of. But the book really goes over what I think, it's kind of a biography of my life growing up in the nightclub business. And again, a lot of men I've seen over the years getting rejected and just not knowing how to carry themselves, not only with women, but just how to find their own identity and having the confidence to become who they want to become publicly and privately. And I think a lot of us are programmed to behave a certain way, I guess you could say.
Most men are clueless, let me tell you.
Right. So, and I'm not sitting here saying I'm Don Juan by any means. It's not that. It was just not only was I raised in the nightclub business till about 14, I ended up in the vending business collecting money inside bars, nightclubs, gentlemen's clubs, restaurants till I was about 40. So I have been by the time I was 20 years old, I'd been in the nightclub bar business at that point 20 years. So I felt like a veteran when I was a teenager. When I hit 21, I said, I've been going to bars, nightclubs, and involved with this for already 20 years of my life. I just seen the way people behave, especially men, when it came to meeting women.
And the same thing, I imagine, what women wanted or what they look for in a man or what attracts them to certain men.
I'm not, it's very interesting because every woman, like every man, you don't, how do I say this? Most men don't know, or they're not self-aware of their behavior a lot of times. They don't, again, know how to put themselves in the right place at the right time to meet the right type of women. They kind of like who likes them. I always talk about. Also, they're kind of lazy. But now with the internet, hypothetically, or even with social media in general, a lot of men can find a lot of women that they're interested in. It just takes a little more work. Same with women. A lot of women, too. Like, a lot of people only go to bars locally still, right? They only go to places. But if you, for instance, like running, join a runner's club, for instance. Or if you like fitness, for instance, start really putting yourself out there to find somebody that you'd match up with. Not perfectly, because I don't think, the one thing I talk about a lot in my book, at least The Wingman, is finding somebody you're compatible with, but also that's very unique, because you both want to learn from each other and grow and discover new things. When you kind of date someone who's very similar to yourself, I think a lot of times it gets very boring.
It gets stale, yeah.
Yeah, so I think there's a balance there.
Something in common, at least one thing in common, but different things there from that point on. Meaning, yeah, we like to cycle or we like to do yoga together, but then we're different in other aspects.
Kind of like the big thing means a lot. So, for instance, if I want to be fit all the time and I like exercising, I can't go date somebody who's a smoker that wants to hang out in a bar all day, right? I'm just saying that most likely is not going to work for you. Or hypothetically, I'm not, but I'm just saying if you are an atheist and all of a sudden you're dating somebody who's very into religion, if you don't feel like, at least at that point in time, like they're going to convert you, that's going to be a problem probably in your relationship. Right. That's kind of obvious a lot of times. But sometimes those things pop up and you don't even know it. Like you may come home tonight or today and go home and your wife all of a sudden, a Jehovah's Witness knocked on the door and she's thinking about becoming a Jehovah's Witness. So you can't also control your future, but you can, I think, a lot of times.
To the best of your abilities.
Yeah, kind of look into the future.
Right.
When you're with, a lot of women, I think, do this. When they find a man they like, they're looking at him as a husband, as a father, right down the road, maybe even a grandfather. I think a lot of men, not all, but a lot of them look at the here and now. Like, she's sexy, she's beautiful, I'm going to fool around with her. Maybe I'll have kids with her, maybe not. Look at the woman as a mother, I think, to a certain degree. How would she treat your children? I always looked at women, too, as, like, if you're with somebody and say you have children and you died, how would they raise your children, right? Those are all things I think you really got to consider. And just living a healthy lifestyle. You want to make sure whoever you're with, I think, at least in the future, or at least the best of your ability, because everyone changes. We're all evolving. But if you know somebody has a lot of problems, say, for instance, off and on, and most likely it doesn't always get better. So it's not an easy ride.
So one of the subjects I want to talk to you about that's interesting is the confidence part, because as the name of the podcast, Real Business, a lot of people that go into business, into sales, into becoming an entrepreneur, they lack confidence, and most of the time that is the root of the failure to that business or to their endeavor. So what can you tell us about building confidence, especially that you touch on that subject?
Yeah, I think a lot of us have insecurities. I'd say almost everyone does to a certain degree.
We all do.
Right. So you have to acknowledge that. Self-awareness is the key, I think, to life, no matter what anybody tells you. When you become self-aware enough to understand your strengths and weaknesses and stop bullshitting yourself, because most people want to lie or pretend they don't feel a certain way about certain things when they really do, right? But when it comes to confidence, I think overall, It's a very interesting question because there's always something behind asking me about that. I think when it comes to confidence, it takes a lot of time. And you also have to realize you're going to probably, again, go through a lot of rejection. Especially now more than ever, say, with social media, we're starting to kind of program ourselves to say, who's accepting me, kind of who isn't to a certain degree, who likes my photos, who doesn't. In business, and a lot of men don't want to acknowledge this, but even in business, I'm shooting out a substantial amount of emails. Who's returning my emails, right? I'm making calls. Who's returning my calls? Everyone's going to deal with rejection. It's how you handle that rejection, how you handle it, especially emotionally. Because a lot of men, especially, I can't speak for a lot of women, they pretend like a lot of things don't bother them, and they're really being bothered by them. They also don't realize when things don't go their way, which is going to be a substantial amount of time in their life. I don't care if you're broke or you're a billionaire. Things are not going to always go your way. How you handle those situations is what I think eventually will lead you to building confidence, good or bad. It's the small things in life that you go through every day, I think, that is what's building your confidence, or on the flip side, destroying your confidence. So if I went out today, or I really learned that, I should say, in the film industry. So I wanted to make films. So I made 2 feature films, and I remember wanting to maybe break into Hollywood and do a Hollywood-style film. And my first 2 films were independent films. So I really I dealt with rejection as far as getting distribution and getting certain type of actors that I wanted to get. But I knew I could only afford what I can afford. But then when I started to write screenplays and kind of try to break into, I guess you could say, Hollywood, at that point in time, all I dealt with was rejection for year after year for like 10 years. Even, trying to raise financing for a slate of films, trying to get actors, again, attached, more or less A or B list, trying to get just a lot. All I dealt with was rejection. And a lot of times, you are who you are because of all your rejections, not because of all your you're succeeding.
So let me follow up on that.
Sure.
So you did 2 films and you dealt with a lot of rejection.
Oh yeah.
So now let me get straight to this is personal. Did that break down your confidence, or did it build your confidence? Because it could go either way.
Exactly.
So what did that do for you? Did you stop filming and pursuing that dream of the Hollywood because it broke down your confidence? Or did you learn from it and build your confidence?
Yeah, so a couple things happened. I was very arrogant, I think, for a majority of my life, thinking I can do everything everybody else couldn't do. So I was almost overconfident, I guess you could say. Especially because I had 2 parents, I think, that programmed me that way. And I love my parents, but they were the 2 type of parents that loved me very much and expected me to accomplish what I wanted to go after.
Even if it was unrealistic? Because that happens a lot.
Absolutely.
You build a child with all this confidence, you can do whatever you want, and you got to be real. No, there's certain things you're not good, you're not going to be able to do. You're not an athlete. You just don't, it just doesn't happen. So I find that being one of the causes to a lot of people where they lack confidence is because they were told, yes, you could do whatever you want, and then at the end of the day, no, you can't.
Or the other way too. Yeah, a lot of parents say you're a piece of shit your whole life, or you can't do anything, or comparing you to whoever. It could be a sibling or whoever.
And you never try.
You break down.
You break down. You never try and give yourself a chance and see if you could do it.
Yeah, my parents loved sports. Both of them. My father was a really good athlete as well. And my mother was even in the early 70s doing yoga and playing indoor tennis and all these things. I wouldn't say they really pushed me as far as academics go, but from playing sports, building up a lot of confidence. But again, when I was even telling my mother, my daughter was born, she had a liver transplant and stuff, and I said, I'm going to start making movies. My mom wanted me to work, obviously, and make money for my family, but she's like, yeah. And my father, I'm like, hey, I'm thinking about making my own films. He was all in. And I was very fortunate to have those parents that were looking forward to me making a film, excited to go to my premieres, my mother, I even put in some of my films. So I know not everybody has that, but that helped build my confidence. But back to me, when I was getting rejected, over and over again. I kind of already knew that game, right? Because I knew it's such a hard industry to break into, but I will say it emotionally took a toll. But I remember going to LA one time, and I went to a bunch of meetings, and I remember walking around LA going, this place doesn't give a fuck about me. I was making my films in Chicago and living in Florida, but you think you're something you're not. But I'm like, even having meetings and everything, I'm like, I'm in reality nothing.
They don't care.
They don't care. That was kind of like an aha moment. But when I went to go we worked for a couple of years, me and my writing partner, who I love. We tried for a long time to raise a substantial amount of money for a slate of films, and we got so close, and the 2008 thing hit, and it kind of destroyed us. And I left there. We had some meetings in Georgia, and I had some other people attached, some well-known producers and filmmakers, and it all fell apart on me. I thought I can kind of come out of it, and I remember coming back home, and I was never the same person again. I didn't, like, in a month, I just remember sitting at the table. I just couldn't stop crying because I was on this path for, like, at that point, 20 years, I'd say. Wait, when did I start? 90. It was a long time. And I just felt like
you were because you were so close and it fell.
Yeah, and it fell
fell through.
And not only that, it was like the whole economy just went to shit in 2000. Like, and I started to, I realized my obsession with making it in the film industry took a toll on my marriage. I think it took a toll on everyone around me because I was so self-centered and selfish. And my father sold his business. I didn't have a job. I was banking on making a couple more feature films. That fell through. And then I remember I went to California to spend some time with my cousin who lives in Carlsbad. And I sat across from him and we had coffee, and I was crying. I was like devastated that I never thought I'd end up in a position I ended up in. Even though I still had confidence to kind of do other things, when it came to that, it kind of shattered me. So sorry I went in that direction.
Was it because you were emotionally attached as well?
Yeah, I felt like a failure. I think what happens too with rejection is you're dealing with failure. And when you get rejected, you think the whole world sees you getting rejected when they're not. But I also think...
Well, when I think about rejection and how you react to rejection,
sure,
and at least what I've learned and how I deal with it is, wait a minute, this is not personal.
Absolutely, that's how you should look at it.
Well, you learn after time. So if I come up to someone and I said, "Listen, buy this from me," or or let's do this, or whatever the deal is, and they say no, well, it's not that I'm no good or the product is no good. It's simply because it's not their time.
Yeah.
In their head, they're going through whatever issue they're having. You never know people's stories. But if they say no, it's not because of me. It's not because of the product. It's simply they're not ready to take the next step or move forward with you. So it's not personal. I don't take it personal.
Yeah, I think...
And that doesn't chip away from my confidence.
I think the difference between what you're saying, and I get it, when you deal with, and I'm not saying, when I was making films, you become somebody who they expect to keep growing in that industry. It's not somebody who's independent, let's say, to society, more or less. I mean, a lot of people work for different people, but I had like thousands of people, I guess you could say to a certain degree, that I knew that were expecting me to make another film. And I was as well, and succeeding at that, including my parents, colleagues, siblings, actors, producers, directors, because they know you're working on this project for so many years. It's not like me saying, all right, I want to buy this house, and I don't get the bid, hypothetically. In this case, now I have to start all over. I'm not going to be able to raise 3 million, 3 million, whatever the case may be per number. I failed. They know I'm not making another film. So it's almost... I don't want to say it's public shame, but everyone I communicate with is like, Rich, when you start your new movie, when you're doing this, when are we doing, pre-production?
So you felt like failure because of that.
Holy shit, did I feel like failure, especially
it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like I failed my kids, my ex-wife, who was wonderful through that endeavor, and I even remember her saying, I can't go through making another film with you. And I was like, who the F are you to tell me I'm not going to stop making films? After I got divorced and me crashing and burning, and I realized a lot of my behavior, again, this is the other extreme of being overconfident, not paying attention to a lot of things in my life, And even a friend told me that once. I said, I'm getting a divorce. And at that time, I was with my ex-wife for many, many years. And he said, yeah. Everybody else was kind of in shock. And he goes, yeah, really, the only thing you ever cared about really was like your kids and making movies.
Right.
And you kind of get hit in the face and go, wow, that's...
Well, you said a word before, and you were obsessed.
Yeah.
And so that's laser focused on one thing only, and you forget about everything else.
You do, and you build your whole life into... sometimes you bullshit yourself. You're like, well, I have to make it in this industry because then I'll make a lot more money than I'm making now, which I can give to everyone else, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't realize how broke and how much time and effort you're putting in where it's actually going the other way. There has to be a balance.
So when do you know when something is not working, when to call it quits? See, that happens a lot in business, and most failures happen because they don't quit on time. And nobody wants to hear the word quit, because that makes them feel like failure. I think if you quit on time early enough, when you realize it's not going to work, it gives you time to work on something else and make it. So some people just get emotionally attached to one idea, and they just don't know when to quit when they're ahead of the game.
I'm obsessed with creativity, but only obsessed with what I want to create.
Even though it at the end it doesn't work?
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I don't have time limits a lot of times, which sounds crazy, but if I decide to do something, once I do, I don't care if it takes me 1 year or 20. I'm a weirdo.
No, that's called a driver. You're type A. You're going to make it happen regardless of what you're told. And most entrepreneurs are like that. That's what makes you different than everyone else. Everyone is in their comfort zone of getting a paycheck, working 9 to 5.
Right.
It only takes special people, type A, to be able to leave that comfort zone and say, I'm going to try this on my own.
Yeah, and again, I don't know if that's ego, but once I do decide to do something, I know after going through the whole film industry type thing, I guess you could say, and that being such a long journey, I realize I almost have to have 2 different outlets, not one, because I become so obsessed with one. So like when I was writing screenplays, I never planned on being an author writing a book. But I remember saying, I was flying so much, I took on another job, so I was traveling a lot. And I said, you know what, I'm burning myself out with these screenplays. I still want to write. Let me try a book. It was just something I first just started doing an outline for, based on this outline I created regarding modeling. And I felt the balance of me going between both helped me out a lot, instead of just becoming obsessed with one. Even when I went on to do my Wingman book, I was still dabbling in my app called the You Around, right? And then while I was doing the You Around, I started mastering self-confidence. Just like when I'm doing podcasts, I do YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
That works for me. And if I don't succeed in any, I truthfully don't care. But a lot of times, as you know, what I think is going to take a year or 2 takes 3 or 4, right? Even writing a book, I'm like, oh man, now that I decide I'm going to write this book, I'll knock it out in a year. By the time I wrote it was about a year. Then I had an editor. The whole process was a few years. Same with my second book. I'm like, oh, now I know what I'm doing. I'll knock it out. That took even longer because it was so much more in depth.
But Rich, that's actually reality. Business. You see, that's the other thing. People want immediate gratification.
Absolutely.
It's Instagram. I put something, I want it right away. I want all the likes. I want to be famous. I start a business. I want to make the millions. I never seen a business plan that shows, okay, this year I'm making 100,000, the second year I'm making 200, and the third year I'm making 400.
Right.
Like on paper, it doubles. In reality, you're probably making 100 grand for the next 5 years,
sure,
each year, until you make it, or not. But it doesn't always work like that. That's what I've seen in reality.
I gotta love what I'm doing, and sometimes this is a lot of things I do end up costing me way more money than I ever make doing it, which I don't think a lot of people want to admit that, right? But
because you don't care, because it's your project, it's your thing.
It is my thing.
Yeah.
That's really about it. I don't know how else to explain it but the problem sometimes is when I do get so into it, other people have to realize that you're either in it with me, not saying you're doing it with me, but you're going to have to deal with me doing this. So
right.
if I'm in a relationship, I'm like, I'm writing this book. It's almost like they're co-writing it with me because either I'm working on it, discussing it, proofreading it with them. So yeah, I went through that actually with my second book with Rhea, who I'm with now. She actually helped me write The Wingman, really, when it came down to it, because she was going back and forth. I drove her nuts. She loved the idea until I think after a couple years of doing it, but I think it came out pretty well. But she, sometimes who you're with too means obviously a lot. So.
How long did it take you to write the book?
Which one?
A Wingman.
I want to say a few years, because like I said, that was a biography, and I was going back and forth. I have an editor out of Italy, actually. So she did my first book, Model Bible. She was involved with the fashion, the industry.
How long did that one take?
That took, I think, about 3 years too, 2.5. I don't.
But you were
But I was writing notes, so that it could be one could be actually 5 years, and the other one could be 5 actually. But
so you were accumulating information, research, and stuff like that, or it was that you just didn't have the time to sit down, knock it out in...
Right, I was working in between, obviously, too. Yeah, and I was doing still some things in the film industry, I guess you could say, too. I was kind of, before that, I was kind of co-producing another film and just doing other things. It wasn't like I just said, hey, I'm going to sit down and write a book for the next year. It wasn't like that. I would do it when I had the time to do it. But my editor, when I did the second book, I'm like, I don't know if she knows anything about this. So we went back and forth. It's a much bigger book, but we were going back and forth, which I loved because she questioned me to death on everything. I think you're offensive here. I don't think this is right. I think you meant to say this. You're being redundant here. Mm-hmm. After doing one book with her, she knew me so well how to help me with my second book, which helped me out tremendously. So that's one benefit.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I follow Tim Ferriss. And, and Ryan Holiday, and they talk a lot about writing books, techniques, and there was one last video I saw from Tim Ferriss, and he was like, I really have to think it really hard if I want to write another book, because it's so time-consuming, it's stressful.
It's exhausting.
It takes him, a long time, and he's written about 4 or 5 books.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, and he mentioned some of the tips to writing books,
right?
Proofreading, having a writer, a ghostwriter, having different people look at it, because everyone has a different perspective and the way they assimilate what you're trying to put in words.
Sure.
So I know it's tough. I heard that you might have a third book.
Yeah, I never really told anybody this publicly, but I was working on a third book, but I stopped. I wanted to do kind of a tribute to my mother. It was called Shut Up and Eat. It's an Italian cookbook, like State Zit e Mangi, because I used to hear that when I was younger a lot. So my mother is a very well-known cook out of Chicago, and what's kind of interesting with her is that she learned based on many different family members, Italian family members, even people from Italy, on how to cook from different regions. And then when she was younger, she went and worked with the Archdiocese in Chicago. And her cooking became so well known. For instance, if she had a St. Joseph Day table, or she'd have to do them in gymnasiums, and they would wrap around the gym. Like there'd be 500, 1,000 people would come to eat her food. So my mother's known for being incredible. I guess she could, cook, and she does desserts. And I want to do a book with her. The problem I was having with her is they're so hard to sometimes deal with on a fun level, because she wanted to always make sure every recipe was perfect. So I got a lot of recipes, let's put it that way. And I started working on it, but what I wanted to do was incorporate a funny story with each recipe. And I probably got about halfway through it, and then my mother, she's kind of got sick. She got so we took a break from that, but I was doing that with her. So that would be the next. If I do another book, it's basically that's going to be it. It's going to be a cookbook, Italian cookbook based out of Chicago, my mother's favorite recipes, and that's really about it.
I was going to ask you, does she know about it, because you're sharing her recipes and,
Yeah, well, she's giving me the recipes. What's funny is she knows some by heart, some she doesn't, and then she has a bag of all her old school stuff. What's happening, though, and I keep telling her write them down, because I have a massive family. I have like 170 cousins. Any party we go to, they make sure my mother, makes a dessert or has to come and cook.
But the best cooks, they don't know their recipe. They just go by. They just eyeball it.
That's half the battle with her, and I'm not there. The problem is I don't live with my mother, and even when I'm there, I'm like, let's do this. She's like, I gotta wait for it to come to me. I'm like, what? Then write it down when you do it. But I'm not saying they're lazy. She's like, I don't want to write it. I'm like, then what am I doing here? Yeah. So It's been a long road with that one, but I definitely still want to do that. So
That's a cool project. I like the title though.
I do too.
Shut Up and Eat.
That's it. And I was going to have her screaming, a photo of her screaming like in a kitchen, maybe with a wooden spoon, at me as a child, because she was always cooking. So anyways, that's it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, Rich, I know you do speeches as well, right?
I've done some like public speaking stuff, but it was more with film or being on a stage talking about my films that I got accepted in festivals or colleges, things in that nature. So, I wouldn't say I'm out there public speaking. I created a spreadsheet if somebody wanted me to regarding the new program, Mastering Self-Confidence. So,
okay. So before we go, again, you have a YouTube channel, a podcast. Where can people watch you or listen to you at?
My YouTube channel is just my name, Rich Celenza. But if you go to...
how do you spell that?
It's Rich and then Celenza.
Celenza.
Yeah, and if you go to my website, it's my name as well. That will lead you to everywhere, including my podcast.
RichCelenza.com.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. So my podcast is called The Rich Celenza Show. WTF are you talking about? I got a few hundred episodes up there now at this point. A lot of them weren't always interviewing other people. It was more or less me kind of giving advice on different things regarding many different things, which include fitness and confidence and many other subjects, or just telling stories about my past.
I know you travel, based on your current job, you travel a lot. So what I've seen on your YouTube or your podcast is about food, because you go to different restaurants, gyms, because you're all over
Correct.
different states and you work out, so that's your thing.
Yeah.
Travel tips, because that's you're in the middle of that. So you have a little bit, and you have other stuff that you talk about, topics like again, like the confidence and health and.
Yeah, I kind of go with what I feel like. I'm not boxed into something. I can't do that. Like will be like, Rich, just talk about film. Rich, just talk about, books. Or,
you do whatever you want.
I do whatever the fuck I want whenever I want to do it with whoever I want to do it with. I always say I can't. And people sometimes some love it, some don't like it. Because even on my podcast, I threw you on my podcast, like episode 303. Right. Mm-hmm. And they had no idea who the hell you were. And then I love that because first I'm thinking, well, who's going to kind of watch this one with Robert? And we talked about the future of fitness. And a lot of people know me, know other people as well, or I've had different guests on. But it was like out of left field. And what worked for that is you were out of left field.
Right.
Right? So that you never know what's going to work.
That's the thing about business. I'm focused about business here. It's that you never know what's going to work. When you put all your chips on one marketing strategy, thinking this is it because you just believe in it and that's what you feel, sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes the least expensive, the least detailed, involved type of marketing, a simple tagline works more than these overworked, over thought out marketing strategies.
Yeah,
I think that's what happened with that episode. We just sat down and started talking, and it worked out. Yeah.
Yeah, and I wanted people to get an introduction to you. What I do with my podcast is, not to get into this, but I want to show a different side of people, because I've been on podcasts as well. Different people's YouTube channel, just television shows and stuff I've done, and I can't say, cable shows, whatever. And everything is so programmed, and it's all like, these are the type of questions, and they're there to pitch their product, tell them exactly who they are and how they, if you listen to me and all this type of shit. I'm like, I don't want to hear your shit a lot of times as far as your pitch, because I already know you. Let me hear something that you've never told someone before. Let me hear some old fun stories about how you ended up where you ended up. Where are you from? Like a lot of times I think we've lost that element because we're all pitching constantly, even on social media. Yeah. Right? So what I wanted to do with my podcast is show a different side of someone. I want to laugh with them or talk about things like, for instance, we were talking about fitness. Not that we're some two obsessed fitness trainers, coaches, but our perspective on what we think the future of fitness is going to be, because we've been working out a majority of our life. So when I remember when we shot that, and I was like, you know what, Robert, let's go this route, right? And I think it worked out. So you never know again.
Yeah.
I just want to have fun. Is the bottom line.
That's the idea.
Yeah, I always look at everything like I'm always looking at my life has been about going to a restaurant and having a meal, right? Mainly Italian restaurants. So I look at when I sit down with a podcast, what I want to sit down with this guy. If we could drink wine, have an antipasto, have some pasta, and enjoy the moment, not get so caught up with, like I said, always pitching something.
Before heading out, I wanna ask you one more question, and basically this is about you're a driven guy. So what are your habits? What are your morning routines? What is it that keeps you sane, keeps you focused? For some people it's meditation, yoga, reading books, whatever it is. What works for you?
Honestly, I'm constantly evolving and changing. I think my openness to never be set doing the same thing over and over again. I'm the opposite of somebody who's structured. I can be very structured, I guess you could say. I could be very military, I guess you could say, where if I need to be. So say working out, I'll never miss workout. But I don't necessarily go at the same time every day, right?
Right.
Eating, I eat at a different time almost every morning, afternoon, or night. When I travel so much, so I'm almost a chameleon. I just, like I was saying earlier, I do what I want when I want, but no matter what, I get it done. But it's not like the guy who's got to get up at, say, 8 in the morning. Like today I got up at 9:30, right? The next day I could get up at 10:30. The next day I could get up at 6 in the morning. The next day I could get up at noon. But if I'm working, obviously I have a schedule when I'm traveling. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to me doing what I want to do, I'm kind of the opposite of what everybody else talks about, because if I feel like going to bed at 2, 3 in the morning, I'm almost like a kid. I never grew up, and I'll do that. If I want to write, if I want to shoot a YouTube video in the gym, I'll shoot it. If I want to shoot it in a restaurant, I'll shoot it. If I don't want to shoot it, I don't shoot it.
So you don't have, let's say, a structure.
No.
And that just works for you.
Correct. I'm the opposite of structure. And people are always like, Rich, how do you get all these things you get done? How do you do that? I go, I just do it. I don't get obsessed with scheduling it. Does that kind of make sense? You want to schedule something for today for you? I'm down with you. But when it came to me and you, I'll be like, hey, when do you want to do it?
Right.
Right? When I was asking you what works for you, then I made it work for me. Now, like I said, on the flip side, when I travel, I catch so many planes. It goes from one extreme to the other. I go from kind of nonchalant. I guess my grandmother from Italy used to say, you were born in the wrong country, because I'm so, I want to take naps, I want to eat. But I never stop doing something, is what I should say as well.
Well, that works for you. I guess you go with the flow, you adapt, and you make it happen. Well, because nothing's constant for you. Traveling, your flights are different times, different days of the week. There's not one structure, so you have to just go with it. You got to roll with the punches. I think what makes it work for you is that you just don't question it. You just go ahead and do it.
I think that came too from me working with my father for so many years. We collected money in bars, restaurants, gentlemen's clubs, all that, right? And we'd start at a time, but we never knew when we would end. Because going inside of each, say we hit 20 bars in a day, you don't know what's going to happen. Are they going to have more money, less money? You're going to get in a beef with a bar owner. You got to move a piece of equipment, whatever. You just get the job done. And that's even when I travel, I am very precise when I have to have. So if I have to catch planes, say I catch 12 planes in a week, and then when I get there, I got to get a rental car, I got to get the job done. I'm the guy, if you want anything done, nothing will stop me. Like if you said, Rich, right now, I have to be in Toronto at this time, but you can't fly. I'm the guy who will get there no matter what, and I'll get there probably fast. You will not stop me. I don't care if it's a blizzard. I don't look at anything ever stopping me from accomplishing what I have to accomplish for who I work for, which is Resicom, which is a wonderful company my cousin owns. So I think my whole life is built around getting something done, but you have to give me the freedom to do it. For me to do my way. Right. I'm not the guy who's going to come to work every day and you're going to see from 9 to 6. I wouldn't even show.
Right. And that works.
I'm kind of we goof around and call myself all these different names: gypsy snob, hippie snob, like all this stuff. But
and I get it, because I'm I'm like that to a certain point.
Right.
I don't like structure. I've been self-employed for 20 years. I couldn't see myself working for someone now. And even when I did, it was hard.
I like working. I love where I work with my cousin's company. And I love traveling because it's the journey along the way, even including filmmaking, writing books. I don't always look at, I remember my first film. So if I go back to that, if I did a film, at the end, we had a huge premiere in Chicago. I got to see everyone and we had all these people there. And then it just ends after that. Then, you got to get distribution and everything.
Right.
But my first film was very off the chart, very off the wall craziness. So I wasn't like going to get any distribution deal at that point in time in 2000. But I loved the journey along the way. So while I'm going through the journey, I know what I'm going through, where most people only look at the end being the accomplishment or the good time.
Well, you have to enjoy the journey.
It's all about the journey for me.
It's like Gary Vee. He wants to buy the jets.
Sure.
Right? And he's like,
New
I don't
York
know.
Jets.
I don't even know if I'm going to buy the jets. I don't know, how much money. I don't even know if I have enough money to buy the jets at that point. But it's shooting to buy the jets what keeps him going. It's that journey, that idea of trying to get there. So he's enjoying his life, his journey through that.
Yeah, and it's not just him. It's everybody else that he meets along the way and who goes along with it with him, right? Yeah, that's my theory too. Right. Like, that's why I love making films, because it wasn't – when you make a film, it's everybody. It's not even a team. It's bigger. It's a coach. It's like a whole – it's like when you do a film, it's so big and so many people are involved. And even
so many moving parts, yeah.
There is. And there's people that even come in and out that you'd never even expected. And I remember – back to going to a premiere and then looking at everybody there, like, we did this together. But what works for me, again, it's not a job where I work with the same people in an office.
Well, micromanaged.
Yeah, I'm working with, in this film, I worked with all these people. And then my next film, I'm bringing some of them, but I got a whole nother type of, thing going on here. And when I travel, I call my life a lot of times like looking through a magazine, and I'm just turning the pages. Mm-hmm. If you look at my life, like one day I'll be in Florida, next day I'll be in Edmonton, Canada, next day I'm in Hawaii, next day I could be in, like 2 days later, I could be in New York. If you look at my lifestyle, that works out so well for me. Most times I wake up, I don't even know where I'm at for a few minutes, and then I got to go do what I got to do. Mm. But that's just, I kind of live my life as a dream. That doesn't mean a financial dream always, but I've kind of been everywhere I always wanted to go in life. I've kind of hit the wall a little bit and said, like,
oh, we all do at a certain point, right?
Yeah. I mean, the next thing would be maybe getting a place in Italy and living in Florida, maybe San Diego. But for the most part, I've lived in San Diego. I loved it, California, but I'm fine with Florida, and next would be Naples, right? That's probably it for me.
So whatever you do with confidence, even if it's bad.
Yeah, no shit. Like, believe me, it doesn't, life most of the time is boring, right? So I think...
Well, it can be, or you make it adventurous. It's up to you.
Right. For a lot of people, it becomes a Groundhog Day. Mm-hmm. When people look at my life and go, you are insane. But it's also, I simplify things, so my life really still revolves. People laugh at me. The place I live in, Orlando, is the same place, except when I left in College Park, when I lived there. But I do this, I got an apartment, I think, at 19 years old in Metro West. And now I'm 50 years old. But when I'm home, people laugh at me. They go, Rich, all you really do is you'll go to an Italian restaurant, either close friends that own Italian restaurants, you're at the gym, or you're at a mall, or you're grabbing a coffee, or something like that. It's really simplified, right? If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then when I travel, it's insane. But
because I guess because you have so much of that, that the traveling, the getting there, getting ready, work, then trying to get back, or flying to a different location, that keeps you so busy that when you come home, you just want to relax.
Yeah, I grew up, I raised my two daughters, and working with my father, I had the luxury of coming and going whenever I wanted to, except for a couple days that we collected money. But we had other employees, so I was able to do so much with my kids. We had season tickets to, all the parks. And I used to even take off like summers with my kids. I'd be like, I'm taking 3 months off with my father. I'm like, we'll hire somebody to do this. And
And spend quality
Yeah,
time with the girls.
Yeah, that's. I mean, my life was basically just wanting to have fun. One of the reasons I stayed in Orlando was because of Disney, Universal. They loved it. One of my daughters, like I said, she had a liver transplant. My other one has type 1 diabetes. So I found Florida to be an amazing place, but I also enjoyed the journey. I had to do something also different with them all the time, which included traveling, even if it was California, Chicago. I'm just all over the place. I don't know how to explain what I do. I just kind of do it.
And do it with confidence.
Exactly. I try to install that in my daughters all the time. I'm like, just have the confidence to at least go towards something. I think most people just start small. Like, I know when you look at something, so one of my daughters wants to be a filmmaker or get involved with the film industry. I'm like, don't think you're going to go make a movie with Johnny Depp or somebody in a year or two. And if you don't worry about it. Just start studying it, figuring out if you do want to go to film school or what do you really want to do.
Learn from the process.
Yeah. That's it. You got to learn along the way.
Yes.
So,
well, Rich, thank you again for being on the show.
No, thank you.
When is the next time I'll have you on?
I don't know. You tell me.
Are you going to finish the book, the third book?
I think that's going to be a long time. I want to finish You Around my app. So that app, I've had some ups and downs with. I created it once. Someone tried to steal it and sell it from me, so I had to start all over again. But I think if I'm going to take anything on again, it's that. That's the only thing I ever quit on in my life, because it was also not only time-consuming, but financially it was starting to get in my pocket a little too much.
Yeah, it does take money. It takes money, copyright. You have to have attorneys involved, believe it or not.
I do. I actually ended up in a legality issue because, like I said, he created it and they loved it so much they tried to steal it and sell it to someone in Germany. And then I had to hire someone else. And then you're starting the whole process over
again. No.
But with an app, I'm not going to get in the whole app thing, but it kept evolving because technology's kind of evolving, which was better.
Can you say what the app is about? Or
yeah, the app is just basically the You Around. It's an app to help anyone in a time of need. And basically what I really went after was, say people need things all the time, right, in your life. They're just ashamed to ask for them, right? Most of the time, a lot of people need things they can't afford, but then you have a lot of people that have things that they want to share or that they don't need any longer that they can basically just give away. Mm-hmm. Of course, they can sell it. And of course, they could donate it to Goodwill. But you'd be shocked at a lot of your friends and family members, even before going to Goodwill, that may need these things. Or it could just be a neighbor. So it's an app to basically, for one, if you want something, to ask for it. But you ask for it privately. So how you do that is you send out a text. It's like a text, but it's not a text. So a lot, as you know, if you send out a string text, everybody sees it. Mm-hmm. In the app, if you hit up 10 people to say, hey, I need a ride to the airport because you can't afford Uber, Lyft, or whatever. You hit 10 people up, hey, I need a ride to the airport on Wednesday at 10 a.m. Everyone sees it individually. Mm-hmm. And then when everybody responds, it's individually as well. So out of 10 people, someone may hit you back and go, hey, I'm available. I'm not working that day. So say you need, I don't care what you could need a cord for your computer. It went out that night. Go on there. You hit 50 people up. Hey, does anybody have this cord? I need to borrow it for this moment, or I need one. I can't afford to buy another one. Whatever the case may be, you shoot it out. Anyone has one, or they want to get you one even, they'll respond and say, yes, I got you covered. I'll bring it over. And there's also a donation type thing where if you have something, say you have a desk here, like in your office, and you're moving. A lot of people don't want to spend a ton of money on moving. They want to get rid of their shit. They don't want to wait to sell it. They don't want strangers coming in their house. You could be like, hey, I got a table, a desk, a couch. You hit up all your friends. It could be 10, could be 50. Hit them up. I have a couch for anybody who wants it. Just come and get it. Whoever responds first, boom, I'll come and get it tomorrow.
Does it let you put a photo of it? Or
no, I didn't get involved with the photo aspect of it. Okay. Now, here's the thing, though. If they respond and say, what's it look like, you text them individually.
Right. Then you open a communication with them.
Right. It's kind of a mass private text. Right. But then what I included, too, which kind of kicked me in the ass, is if you wanted, you can be able to go on there and see where everybody's at. If they, on their settings, wanted you to see. So say you need a ride to the grocery store, you can go on there and say, hey, look, who's in my area? Oh, Pete's in my area. Boom, I'll hit him up right now.
Yeah, so that's GPS involved.
Exactly.
That's a different...
It's different, but it was really cool. So that was the next level of it. which I really love doing, which was really cool because that's where testing it was getting a little crazy. But it was just a really cool component because, say, the elderly, for instance, it was really meant for college and elderly, which I know sounds weird. But I was seeing all these people watching.
Well, these are the people that need. Or you're in college and don't have a ride, don't have
Or money.
or you're,
Yes.
senior and you can't drive, or, you're
Correct.
ill, or you need something and you can't get around. So it makes sense.
Yeah. So if you're younger, like we're saying, I started watching Dateline again, 2020, those type of shows, Nightline, and these teenagers were getting, something bad was happening to them. But I'm like, a lot of them either are afraid to reach out to somebody, but if you're stuck at a bar and with somebody, say 2 girls, the girlfriend leaves, she's stuck, she's got to walk home, look at the GPS, say, okay, this guy's right here, because you don't know who's where at what time. But if you have a friend, a girl or a guy, and say, oh, she's 3 blocks down the road, hit her up, hey, can you pick me up and give me a ride? And with the elderly too. So, but the elderly got to learn how to use the phone. But as you know, a lot of times the elderly are ashamed to ask for help. But you can also, like I said, reach out to them as well. So the whole app is built around getting rid of the insecurities of asking for help. And I don't care if you're broke or a millionaire. You may need help at one moment moving a desk.
You never know when. Yeah.
So.
Well, I wish you all the best with that, and I hope to see that come to life.
That's all I got,
Rich,
my friend.
Thanks a lot for being on again, and until the next one. So
Absolutely.
anyone looking into him, again, it's richcelenza.com. Look him up.
That's it.
All right.
Yeah.
Till the next one. Man. Thanks, man.
All right, take care.
If you like the topic in today's episode, please like, comment, and subscribe. Check us out on iTunes or visit Real Business Podcast for more information. Thank you. Until next week, stay real.